Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We start our video with a woman who thought name-dropping the farm owner would let her walk off with unpaid groceries. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Her card declined, then her imaginary friendship with the owner did too. The farm store isn't just a store, it's a little community hub. Employees, vendors, regulars, and weekend wanderers all pass through, and being in a small town means most at least know of each other. A lot of them also know, or think they know, the farm owner, who we'll call Farmer John for the sake of this story. Now, being a friendly, hands-on guy, Farmer John has met a lot of people. He's at community events, local markets, even pops into the store sometimes. But that friendliness has a downside. People love to act like they've got a personal connection to him when they want something they shouldn't be asking for. And as someone who works there, I hear the same line over and over. I know Farmer John. Yeah, cool, so do I. I see him every week. Doesn't mean I'm going to let you walk out with a basket full of unpaid groceries. Anyway, one particular evening, about 10 minutes before closing, this woman walks in. Let's call her Fancy Pants, FP. She's dressed like someone who just walked off a suburban golf course ad. Hair too perfect for the weather, loud designer handbag, sunglasses on indoors. She grabs a cart and starts doing serious grocery shopping. Not the I need a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread kind either. She's grabbing produce, pantry staples, frozen items, $80 worth easy. Now this already annoys me a little. It's nearly closing time, and we're used to last-minute folks grabbing one or two items, not doing a full weekly restock. But fine, we're trained to close up what we can and let the latecomers finish without rushing them. FP finally makes it to the checkout. I ring everything up, bag it nicely, smile like I haven't been silently reorganizing the freezer section in my head, and then her credit card declines. Me, looks like your card isn't going through. Would you like to try again or maybe use another form of payment? FP, I don't have another credit card or any cash. Me, we can take a check if you have one. FP, no, this is all I have. Can I just go home and come by to pay tomorrow? Me, I'm sorry, I can't allow that. If you live nearby, like in neighborhood name, I can hold your groceries here while you run home and grab another form of payment. That's totally fine. FP, it doesn't matter where I live, I don't have time, I've got a conference call. I know Farmer John, and I'm sure he'd be fine with me coming back tomorrow to pay. Here it was, the line. I could practically hear the trumpets in her head as she pulled out her Farmer John card like it was Excalibur. Unfortunately for her, it didn't impress me. Me, ma'am, I don't have the authority to approve that, and there's no manager on site right now. Either we need payment tonight, or I can store your bags for pickup tomorrow after payment. But I can't let any unpaid items leave the store. That's when she flipped. Full Karen mode activated. She started ranting about how ridiculous this was, how she was going to speak to Farmer John directly, and how she'd never been treated this way in a store before. I just kept repeating the same options, pay or leave the groceries. And then, just like that, magic. As if from thin air, FP pulls another credit card out of her pocket, the same pocket she swore was empty just minutes ago. She slides it into the reader, approved. She grabs her bags without a thank you and storms off like I'd personally insulted her yoga instructor. Now here's where it gets really good. 2 weeks later, she's back. And wouldn't you know it, Farmer John just happens to be there that day, chatting with employees and checking on things. FP lights up like a Christmas tree, strutting over to him with that same confidence she had at the register. Farmer John, she calls out brightly, hoping for a warm welcome and a chance to play the victim of my cruel injustice. He turns to her, smiles politely, and says, hi there. Sorry, have we met? Her face dropped. Whatever imagined friendship she thought they had, completely in her head. She awkwardly backed away, mumbled something about seeing him at some event, and walked off without saying anything else. It was glorious. And our second story, in which I lose my job over 10 cents. So after Christmas sale '08, I'm working as a cashier in a big box retail chain store. We're clearing out all of our holiday inventory, and most of our items are marked down in the computer. It's a busy day, and that's good because it keeps the line moving and keeps me from getting too bored. Anyway, a customer, let's call him AC, comes through with a bag of holiday-themed M&Ms, one of the big ones you buy when you're filling a dish at parties or baking them into cookies. In any case, the amount that food items are marked down is considerably smaller than that of things like lights, trees, and ornaments, so I've for several years shorthanded the discount at about 10 cents. Some of this is dramatized. It was almost a decade ago, but you'll get the idea of what happened. Me. Hi, did you find everything you were looking for? AC puts M&Ms on the conveyor. AC. Yeah, just this. I ring it up and it shows the marked price is $2.99. Me. All right, sir, your total's going to come to $2.99. AC. It was supposed to be marked down. Me. Okay, let me get the manager. AC. Why isn't it in the computer? Me. Sometimes these things just happen. Probably an oversight. AC. Getting unreasonably angry. Well, change it for me now. Me. I'm sorry, sir, I have to have a manager to override this. AC, sarcastically. Oh, you're going to call a manager so they can tell me it's not on sale too? I pick up the phone to page a manager. AC. Can't even do your effing job. Me. You know what? Bite me. AC, furious, looking like he's going to hit me. What did you say? Me, now realizing what I've done and both scared I'm going to lose my job and that this jerk is going to hit me. You heard me. He glares at me for another second like he's going to hit me and then storms off with a bag of candy in his hand. He heads over to customer service and yells at the girl there. I cut off my light and slump behind my desk. I was pretty shaken up and almost crying. I finish my shift as usual, and the next time I come in for work, I get fired. It was unprofessional, but seriously, do not F with cashiers during or after Christmas. I still haven't de-stressed from Christmas Eve at that point. The fact that you lost the way you make money so you can live because you stood up for yourself when someone was extremely rude to you over 10 cents makes me so unbelievably angry. And yet there's the older men and women who would say you should have lost your job because those people completely lack empathy. Employees should be allowed to defend themselves. And our next story. How to win a smoking dispute without breaking rules. A few years ago, I lived in a third-story apartment in a modest complex with no balcony. I'd been there for almost 4 years by then, and I was the kind of tenant landlords wish they had more of. I kept to myself, never made any noise, and always tried to be helpful. I cat sat for the neighbor across the hall, helped the elderly Russian gentleman learn how to use his new kitchen appliances, and even helped folks move in and out when I could. Basically, I did my best to be a good neighbor. The third floor of the building was unique. It was the only floor with a connecting walkway to the opposite wing of the building, fire code and all that. In the middle of that walkway was a small landing with a few steps down and back up, right where the two sides of the building met. Since I didn't have a balcony, I used to sit on those steps to smoke a cigarette. Always brought my butts back with me, and I even swept the area every few days just to keep it neat. It wasn't the most glamorous spot, but it was quiet and out of the way. Then a new couple moved into the unit across the landing from me. Not long after they moved in, the guy approached me one evening while I was finishing a cigarette. He seemed polite and said, "Hey, sorry to bother you. Do you mind not smoking here? We can smell it in our apartment." I was a little surprised, but I'm not unreasonable. I smiled and said, "I'm so sorry. Yeah, no problem. It won't happen again." He thanked me, and we both went our separate ways. That night, I started walking all the way down to the first floor and smoking in the parking lot instead. Not exactly convenient, especially in the middle of winter or when I was in the middle of a movie, but I'd made a promise and I stuck to it. It wasn't ideal, but I figured it was a small compromise to keep things neighborly. The next morning, though, I got a call from the apartment office. Apparently, they'd received a complaint that I was smoking in the connecting walkway area. I admitted I had been, but explained that I'd stopped after speaking with the new tenant. The property manager paused and said, "Oh, you don't have to go all the way to the parking lot. Any stairwell landing is a designated smoking spot. Pretty much anywhere except the connecting walkway you were originally using's fine." Well then, that changed things. So I started smoking again, but this time I used the stair landing just outside their apartment, the one they had to walk past every time they came or went. Still within the rules, still legal, and I wasn't doing it to be petty. Okay, maybe just a little, but mostly I wasn't about to keep going out of my way when I'd already made a good faith effort to be respectful, and they turned around and complained behind my back. Had they just spoken to me and left it at that, none of this would have happened. I'd already changed my behavior, but by going straight to management after I'd already gone out of my way to accommodate them, they lost the benefit of my consideration. So now every time I wanted to smoke, I walked past their unit, took a seat on the stair landing right outside, and lit up. Legally, peacefully, and with just the faintest hint of righteous satisfaction. And our last story. Farmer gets last laugh and $8 million. There's a city about 30 minutes from where I live that's been growing like a weed for the past 2 decades. Strip malls, chain restaurants, office parks, you name it, they've built it. But right in the middle of all that growth, smack between a Target and a 4-lane boulevard, was one odd holdout, a modest farm. It wasn't much, maybe 25 acres with a weathered barn, a small house, and rows of soybeans or corn depending on the season. The farmer, an older guy named Harold, had been working that land his whole life. His parents left it to him, and he kept it going long after the city wrapped around it like ivy on a fence. Developers hated it. They saw dollar signs every time they drove by. One by one, the surrounding properties were rezoned for commercial use and sold off to build shopping centers and apartment complexes. Harold's land still zoned agricultural. Here's where things get shady. Harold didn't actually want to stay. He was willing to sell, but only if the city let him sell at commercial rates, like they had with everyone else. Problem was, the city refused to rezone his land. They insisted it was agricultural and therefore only worth a fraction of what the adjacent property sold for. They figured if they held out long enough, Harold would give up and sell low. He didn't. This standoff dragged on for nearly 20 years. By the time I started paying attention, Harold was in his 70s. His land was now completely boxed in by development, restaurants on one side, a townhome complex creeping up the back, a strip mall across the street. Still, Harold stuck to his guns. He kept planting, kept harvesting, and kept telling the city no. But then something changed. Word got around that Harold didn't want to die and leave this mess for his kids. He was tired. The city probably assumed that meant they were about to win. They were wrong. Instead of selling, Harold filed for a special permit with the State Agricultural Board. It was all above board, done by the book, and after months of paperwork, he got approved for a hog confinement operation. If you're not familiar, that's a facility where hundreds, sometimes thousands of pigs are raised for market. These places are loud, messy, and they stink. Normally, they're miles away from anything resembling a neighborhood. Not this one. The city tried to intervene, but they hit a wall. They'd never officially annexed Harold's land. It was still under county and state jurisdiction, and as far as those authorities were concerned, it was agricultural land, and Harold had followed every single regulation to the letter. The developers started to sweat. The homeowners behind Harold's field started calling emergency meetings, but it was too late. One summer morning, a caravan of livestock trailers rolled in. Over 400 hogs were delivered to what had until recently been a quiet cornfield. Pens were set up, feeding stations, slurry tanks. Within days, the smell reached across 4 city blocks. The complaints started immediately. Parents called the school board because their kids couldn't play outside during recess. Restaurants started losing business. No one wanted to eat al fresco with the aroma of swine manure wafting through the air. Realtors were canceling open houses. One guy reportedly chained himself to a city council member's car with a sign that said, "My backyard smells like bacon and depression." The city scrambled. They sent letters, they sent lawyers, they tried to get the state involved. Nothing stuck. Harold had followed the law. He'd done everything the city had refused to let him do for years. He used the land for agriculture. It took less than a week for the city to cave. Suddenly, Harold's land was eligible for commercial rezoning. Miraculously, the paperwork was processed within days. The developers were back at his door, but this time Harold was holding all the cards. He sold for full commercial value, what he'd been asking for from the beginning. From what I heard, it was somewhere north of $8 million. The hogs were gone by the end of the month, the pens dismantled, the slurry tanks drained. By winter, the land was cleared. They're building a medical office complex there now. Looks like it'll have a Starbucks. But every time I drive past that corner, I still smile a little. For a brief, glorious moment, a 70-something farmer outmaneuvered a city council, half a dozen developers, and the tide of gentrification, all with a herd of pigs and a stack of paperwork. And he got every penny he was owed. Oh, you want to treat me like a second-class citizen? Fine. Enjoy the sweet aroma of industrial pig farming right next to your Panera Bread. If there's ever a Mount Rushmore for don't mess with old men who've had enough, Harold's face deserves a spot. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.